Pace is dropped on Soccer's morning show. It's another round of soccer down here. It's a Wall Pass Wednesday. So that means that anything that is on your mind, about anything, doesn't necessarily have to be about the sport of soccer, but anything on your mind, bring to the table. We do have matches from last night to talk about. We do have weather from last night to talk about. We've got weather from yesterday to talk about. We've got yesterday to talk about. I'll bring yesterday's question that we did on the SDH Power, however long it was. I'll bring that forward as part of opening kickoff this morning. Run through the traffic of the day. Looks like Bart Keeler is going to be joining us at 9:30 to talk Gold Cup because folks did the math yesterday, and there was 25 goals. There were. Oh, my mom's going to get me for that one. There were 25 goals in 4 Gold Cup matches yesterday. We'll go over Group C and D. The United States knows who they're facing next. Familiar foe. Strap in on that one. So make sure that your seatbelts and are nice and tight, and that your tray tables are at their full upright and locked positions, as long as in addition to the chairs that are there in front of you in your row. So familiar foe, we'll go over all the Gold Cup from yesterday, C and D. We'll go over anything else on Bart Keeler's mind at 9:30. If familying has not gotten in the way of the of what's going on, so if Dylan Butler is familying, trust me, we understand, considering that this is July 4th week. Dylan Butler is scheduled to join us at 10 o'clock, but trust me, if you're taking a week off, take the week off. So hopefully Dylan can join us at 10 o'clock if he's not high schooling or if he's not familying, and Bart Keeler joins us at 9:30. We've got news. And remember, happy window for all of those who celebrate. Getting into everything, let's see. Will, good morning. Abby, good morning. Yes, Will, Tiger Driver 91 from the Forbidden Door. That still makes me cringe. I don't know how, and that's something that you can look up on YouTube, folks. I don't know how Kenny Omega got out of that one. But morning ropes and ropes with the question of the day, or at least during opening kickoff. And Michael being out of town, it was a good win on Sunday. And we've so if there's anything left over from Sunday that you guys want to talk about, we got that too. Bam had an early morning, and El Trafico in front of 82,110 did not go Bam's way. And so, Bam, there are questions. We have questions about LAFC. Ropes, to answer your question about the boss. Boss got in just before the downpour. And I mean literally just before the downpour. The way that it laid out, all right, fine. We'll call this opening kickoff. Why not? Opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. That's the QR code for those of you who are watching on Twitch. Don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15 if you partake in Kickoff Coffee, and they in turn take 10% reinvested into youth initiatives in the youth game. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. All right, so opening kickoff. We'll make opening kickoff, and we'll make it all July 4th-y. So to answer Ropes' question, made it just before the downpour, and I mean literally. Traditionally, it's the way things go. For those of you that don't know how things operate here on July 4th, no morning show because the boss is running in the Peachtree Road Race, or she's participating in the Peachtree Road Race. There are parts where she runs. She does not run up Heartbreak Hill. And so what I do is when I hear on the TV broadcast that her group is gone, I wait about 20 minutes, leave the house, go to the halfway point, and I'm taking things to fuel her for the second half of the race. It's like bananas, water, anything like that, because there's a group of our friends that hang out right there, just close to the halfway point at the first flat spot of Cardiac Hill, and right there. And so we meet there. I see her. I have video on my phone, and then she goes and finishes the rest of the race. She got to 10th Street to make that left-hand turn to go down the line, and it started raining. Literally, she got to the finish line, and it opened up. And so she made it but it's the first time in years that they had to black flag the race because of the weather. Black flagging the race. It's been the first time in a long time, but the boss made it. Congratulations to everyone who did, everyone who participated. It takes a lot of gumption to try to get things together and make sure that you want to participate in a 10K. And the boss, she trains for, she does exercise all year long, but she specifically trains for the Peachtree. She'll go 5 miles in June, 4 miles in May, 3 miles in April just to get conditioning, in addition to her normal maintenance of 2 and so. Yeah, I mean, black flag. Oof. So, boss made it, and thank you for asking, Ropes. And I'm hoping that everyone's fourth was as you wished. And we'll catch up with Bart for those of you that got to see Bart on social media and how he got to survey everything that was going on in his particular part of the planet and make sure that everybody was going to be as safe as possible there. So let me bring, yeah, it does. It's awful. Let me bring the question that I had yesterday, and I will bring it to the fore today. When it comes to July 4th, July 4th in and of itself, we know that it is a very, very busy day on a bunch of different fronts. But there is there's a particular event. It was under a rain delay for a while, and it was the hot dog eating contest at Coney Island in Brooklyn. And Joey Chestnut now is tied with John Cena and Ric Flair for 16 championships in his lifetime. I'm going to ask you guys this, and Will mentioned a brisket yesterday. Is there something that you think you could eat where you could compete on an international scale? Because we talked about all the stuff that goes on in eating competitions and all the various things that can be eaten, and you can be an eating champ of X. No, Ropes and Rowdy's not a fan of the fourth either. He was in tight quarters pretty much most of the evening. He was hanging out, making sure that the boss was okay. Is there something that is that is eaten that you guys out there collectively think you could eat in that 10-minute time frame and be competitive on an international scale to eat? I don't know how folks do the hot dogs, and we went through a couple of them yesterday. I mean, there are it's tacos and empanadas, and Will had mentioned brisket. Bam says he'll take on any of us in a Vegemite sandwich eating contest. The only Vegemite I know has to do with our friends at Men at Work and how we're explained what Vegemite is. Nick's is the slowest eater in the world. I would try. Nick says he would die if he tried to do that ish. Ropes used to think pizza, but now, yeah. Traditionally, what we do is we order pizza in the middle of the afternoon, and it kind of works its way through the day. Will with an interesting one: rainbow sherbet. Okay, all right. That's. I don't know if there is an ice cream eating contest out there, but Will, perhaps you should start one so that way you can be the world champion rainbow sherbet eating. So, yeah. Is there a food out there that you guys like that you sit there and you go, you know what, I could eat all of that in a 10-minute period, and I could be a competitive eater on an international scale? That's the question of the day. And so Will is saying rainbow sherbet. Like I said, Huntsville Will said brisket yesterday in the afternoon power hour. So this is genuinely curious. I mean, when we were all between the ages of like 16 and 20 or 16 and 22, we could sit there and go, you could pretty much eat anything in front of you, and you could, feel like you could conquer the world and be an international champion. Yeah, brain freeze on any ice cream. I got that yesterday when I was finishing up the birthday cake ice cream that was in the freezer. So, no, I'm right there with you, Abby. I get brain freeze too. So that was where that idea kind of came from. Is there anything out there that nowadays, at your current age, you think you could eat and be competitive on an international scale? Just curious. So, let's see. Abby is arugula. David is a hot light and get you some Krispy Kreme. Yeah, because there's nothing that beats hot donuts now. Because when you go to Krispy Kreme and you get hot donuts now, it is an entirely different animal than just going and getting a normal donut that has been made, it is cooled, and it is on display. Hot donuts now are like the equivalent of the hot crystal. And what I mean by that is it goes down differently. The hot donuts now, because the dough is fresh and fresher, it just goes down differently. And I could definitely, David, see the idea of, man, could somebody who could be a hot donuts now champion, that would be tremendous. No doubt. 12 seconds in the microwave. Okay, that's a good life hack, Abby. 12 seconds in the microwave for any Krispy Kreme donut that is no longer in the hot donuts now stage. Yes, so definitely gets bonus points today for that. But so, like I said, it was just a curious thing, and that's just how the opening kickoff works sometimes. Once again, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. Once again, there's the QR code for those of you who are watching on Twitch. And once again, remember that to use the code SoccerDownHere15, you get 15% off of your purchase. They, in turn, take 10% reinvested into the youth game and youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. All right. So happy window for those who celebrate. It is the beginning of the transfer window. And, yeah, you got to have either a microwave in your own spot, or you've got to make sure that's the key. If it's not hot donuts now, you've got to have access to anything that can absolutely jazz it up. Ricky Ricardo, I would say Emilio, Italian Rainbow Tricolor cookies. Okay, there you go. Ricky is fighting the notion of the microwave. Happy summer window for those who celebrate. And when when we talk about the league, you're going to have some folks who got some business to take care of. And we'll kind of canvas in the relative sense. Here's your next question of the day. Who do you think outside of Atlanta really has to do some work in the transfer window? Who has to do some work in the transfer window? Non-Messi deals already done, courtesy of our friend Tom Bogert. Aaron Bopenza for $7 million to FC Cincinnati. Chicho Arango for $6 million to RSL. Nelson Palacio, another $2 million for RSL. Timu Pukki to Minnesota United. We talked about that one when that happened, and we were still kind of raising a collective eyebrow on that one. And then Usman Doumbia, DP for the Chicago Fire. So those are your five deals so far. Those are your 5 deals so far that were non-Messi deals that should be announced official today. So we'll keep an eye on all of that. Coco's saying that Samoa's. Bam says LAFC's got some work to do. Well, and Bam, you might not be too far off considering what happened last night. In front of 82,110, it did not go well for Bam and his LAFC-ness. Goal by Tyler Boyd, his 3rd of the year in the 27th minute, gave LA Galaxy a 1-0 lead. Then Ilie scored in the 57th to tie it up at 1. Ricky Puig scores with about 15 to go. 2-1, your final. And Dylan, who was up incredibly late. So Dylan got El Trafico. And this might be why Dylan might be still asleep. Byline posted at 2:25 this morning. So we'll if Dylan makes it this morning, Dylan will definitely get a tip of the hat. So Dylan says, quote, LAFC have gone from a team on the brink of being arguably the greatest in MLS history to one in a serious slump. Just a month ago, CONCACAF Champions League final, 180 minutes away from their first of its kind Supporter Shield MLS Cup CCL treble over a span of 8 months. Lost to León, and they've now dropped 8 of their last 11. 2-1 defeat to Galaxy in front of the crowd of 82-110. Third consecutive league defeat. Steve Cherundolo, quote, "We're still not firing at full strength. It'll come, but I don't think that's exclusive to LAFC. That's a lot of clubs right now who are missing players. It's a tough stretch for us, a lot of games, but we'll get through it. I think if we continue to work on our effectiveness in our own end, not giving up soft goals, making sure that the chances we do get are finished with goals, we'll see happier times here at LAFC." The quick soundbite that was posted to social media from Cherundolo, disappointed for our fans we couldn't give them 3 points tonight. LAFC did not have Aaron Long, Sergi Palencia, Jesus Murillo, Diego Palacios. And there's, quote, "expectable and logical fatigue," according to Cherundolo from the deep run in CONCACAF Champions League. Still, he said that they didn't play a complete 90 minutes against LAG. Quoting Cherundolo, "I didn't like the defensive performance in the first half. In the second half, I was very pleased with the performance with and without the ball. And in transition, we created a lot of moments for us. Didn't quite execute perfectly, but we were close. Set pieces were better in the second half." LAFC's 9th defeat in 20 all-time El Traficos. While Cherundolo, and this is Dylan still, while Cherundolo bristled when told the Galaxy have gotten the upper hand in the rivalry, he acknowledged how much the defeat stings. Quote, "These games mean a lot, and I'm pissed off. But that's okay that it hurts and we're upset. It should motivate us moving forward, and it will." LAFC third in the West, 3 points behind all caps SC. And then you come up with San Jose, 10:30 on Saturday night. So it will be interesting going forward, as Bam says that LAFC has some work to do here in the transfer window. Like I said, we will keep an eye on the window this morning. We will keep an eye on the window, and if there's anything going on, I know that our intrepid social media searchers will let us know about rumors, gossip, innuendo, and things getting signed. So we'll keep an eye on all of that stuff as you guys continue to talk about what's going on with treats and cookies and July 4th and everything. Apparently today, once again, in meteorology down here, it is supposed to be kind of nasty here in the southeast, so just be careful today on general. Back and forth. Wow. Yeah, the atmosphere at the Rose Bowl was incredible. You could get in the door like right at kickoff if you had nothing else going on in your life. You could walk in the door, get some decent seats for just around $100. And Bam says, "What happened last night? Galaxy treat playing us as winning the championship, and we don't turn up in games like that." So it will be interesting. Will says, "If we were betting folk who replaces Arujo in the DP slot, keep an eye on that." To the window, to the wall. Red Bulls and NYC could play at MetLife, and it wouldn't come close. Absolutely true. LAFC, LAG, El Trafico is a big deal. Doesn't matter where it is. Could be in Carson. Could be at BMO. Honestly, it probably should still be at the Rose Bowl as many times as you can get away with it. Because if you can fit 80,000 in there, more power to you. Red Bulls and NYC could play at MetLife, and it wouldn't come close. It wouldn't. Absolutely not. Last night, with the Gold Cup going on at Red Bull Arena, the boss, as we were flipping back and forth and looking at all the matches, especially Guatemala, Guadalupe, the boss was actually surprised when looking at that particular match and its location. She was shocked that it was at Red Bull because there were people actually sitting in all the seats. Rim shot. So the boss got in a rim shot last night about Red Bull Arena. Yeah, Bam think next year when LAFC hosts, it's going to be at SoFi. They've got some work to do. SoFi has to get something figured out when it comes to the width of the field, I think. I think it's the width because it's almost Allegiant-ish. It's not quite wide enough. It might be wide enough, and yes, I just used air quotes. It might be wide enough. But if SoFi is going to be a home to anything in 26 when it comes to the world competition, yeah, they are hosting the Gold Cup final, but it's not wide enough. It's wide enough, but it's not wide enough, and especially for FIFA standards. So Gold Cup, yes, Ricky. For 26, they got some work to do. They've got to. They got to push things out a little bit. They've got to get out the rib spreader and take out some seats, I think. And that's going to be the homework project for Stan Kroenke and SoFi. Yeah. And Michael, that is the absolute question of the day. That's your QOD. How dumb is the fact that a brand new $5 billion stadium that will host World Cup games was not built wide enough? That. So, yeah. Yeah, so that's the whole thing. And you've got to figure out, okay, so how many seats am I losing? How many of those expensive seats am I losing? Tafka MBS is actual. I mean, it's legit. Let me check it. Hang on. I know that this is going to make for tremendous audio. It's going to make for great radio and great Twitch. All right, so I am doing the search. And why does it do that? Why does it do that? I don't know. Okay, so back in 2017, I'm trying to see if there was any notification. 75 yards wide. It affected about 900 seats in the football to soccer. So back in 2017, when the stadium came online, 53 and a third yard wide football field becomes a 75 yard wide soccer pitch with retractable seats in the corners. It affected about 900 seats. Atlanta's is 115 by 75. So that's what you're doing. And it was the retractable seats in the corners that was the difference. So that's what you're staring at. Yeah, 115 by 75. Thank you, Amelia. Yes. And so you're staring at those seats, retractable off the edges for MBS. And if I remember SoFi, it's very, very rectangular, and they're going to have to get some work done. 2 minutes early. 2 minutes early. The man is just on fire this morning because, frankly, I didn't want to get Bart in any trouble. Oh, different locale. Wait a second.
Yeah. Hi from Decula, Georgia.
Well, yes, and considering all the times that I have seen you representing Archer High School.
Yes, this is. I am about a mile from Archer.
Okay.
No longer need to represent them. We don't have any kids there anymore. The last two graduated last month, so we are done.
Well,
I joke. There were still a bunch of kids here yesterday for the fireworks display that are still at Archer High School. So
I was going to say, how was the 4th, sir? Because for those that follow you on social media, you were there as the fireworks gendarme. Yes.
Yeah, I was supervisor at the pyrotechnics display last night. I was lead engineer for about 10 years. I've gotten a promotion to supervisor. So.
Oh man! So everything went well.
Yeah, no one got burned, and all the spectators were thrilled. So
okay, so all right. So then the question of the day that I've carried over from yesterday is: there the whole Joey Chestnut thing? Is there a food that you, sir, could sit there and go, I think that I could eat this in a 10-minute period, and I could be, an international powerhouse in eating X food. What do you think it would be for you, or have you pretty much just left that to the young folks?
Yeah, no. So this is a weird one, and I don't know if it counts, but cucumbers. It's my favorite snack. It's like the thing that I eat all the time, and I'll either like slice them and eat them, or I'll just peel a whole cucumber and just eat it.
Okay.
So I would say probably a cucumber. I would do a really good number on a hot dog as well. Like those, I think I could put down some hot dogs.
Okay.
The hot dogs have been a staple in my family for my entire life. That was very much a West Virginia thing. My parents, we've always been hot dog people. So
Okay. Just checking because it's just one of those fascinating things where you sit there and you go, how can these people with their retractable jaws and everything
yeah,
sit there and make sure that all of that happens and they don't get like violently ill?
I mean, if only our best athletes would play soccer and not eat hot dogs.
Yeah, I never saw that
Yeah.
passed around yesterday. All right, Gold Cup, and we now know who the United States is playing next. And familiar foe. And first off, I mentioned that there were 25 goals in the 4 Gold Cup matches last night. Costa Rica and Martinique thought that they were playing the first set at Wimbledon.
Yeah.
Finished up at 6-4. Panama and El Salvador 2-2 in Group C.
Yep.
And then the chaos in Group D, and saying it was chaotic was, I think I'm probably being nice to chaos by saying that Group D was chaotic yesterday, because it ends up being a 5-goal madness at Red Bull Arena when people. It's amazing what happens when people actually find Harrison, New Jersey, and sit in seats. Amazing atmosphere.
I was told that there's no possible way to get to Harrison, New Jersey in that stadium. That's just what I've been told. You can ask your friend Dylan, who comes on next, but I was told that it is impossible to get to Harrison. It's actually like Wakanda. Unless you know where it is, it doesn't exist.
Been there, found it, but had trouble getting an Uber out. So that was how it was for me. Guatemala, Guadeloupe had pretty much everything that you could have asked for in a last match day. Back and forth action, people doing math, people running onto the pitch, things being thrown at people. Yeah. That one was crazy last night in Group D, and then Canada took care of business and took all of our hopes and just threw them in the garbage. So Group D was so much fun yesterday.
Listen, I think the drama personally was watching. I mean, obviously the Guatemala match was an incredibly dramatic match, and that was a lot of fun. The stadium full of Guatemalan fans. Just that is the perfect showcase as to why the Gold Cup is hosted in the U.S. every 2 years. I don't think it should be every 2 years. That's why the U.S. hosts it all the time, because you're not going to get that outside of Guatemala and really any country in CONCACAF, and it's pretty special.
Yeah.
But the drama for me was watching Canada hold on against Cuba. I mean, this Canada team is really in a bad run of form, and Cuba's not bad. Don't try to get me wrong, but like that's a team that if Canada wants to pretend, if they keep saying that they're one of the top dogs in this region, Cuba's a team you got to smack. It's just the reality of it. You can't be a top dog in the SEC and not go into Vanderbilt and win by 40. It just doesn't work that way. You can't be a top dog in CONCACAF and not beat Cuba, who struggles to keep their teams together for obvious reasons.
Yeah. Was it 4 players that?
Yeah, I think it was 4 this time.
Decided that they were kind of done with the whole thing.
Yeah, which I get it. I'm not criticizing them, but that was. Let's be real honest. Canada is going to be an interesting, possibly very tough matchup for the U.S. because they've been really bad this tournament. And, I'm sure that you can blame it on some number of not having the ability to train or recover or whatever, at whatever capacity that, finances will allow. But that team out there, that squad shouldn't be struggling this badly, especially when you consider the fact that you've had a coach there for, 2 cycles now. And a bunch of their top players are still playing in this tournament. And that's the scary part if you're the U.S., but that's also the part that is shocking at these performances they put in. They've scored goals, though. I'll give them credit. They've been scoring goals.
Yeah, but you got to score goals against competition. As you say, you gotta thump folks that you got to thump. So you got to score goals in that group to make sure that you get out of that group in one piece.
They did. They did survive. It was it was tough for the Canadians. So weird. Abby, I don't know if that grandfather clock works. I got to be real honest. But I will show you. I'll show you the still winter snow scene village that's still up. So my mother's labor of love.
So then let me ask you this about your mom. Is she one of the ones that watches Christmas in July on Hallmark and things?
She doesn't do that kind of stuff. No, she just that's a lot to put up. It covers all 3 walls of that room, so she just kind of leaves it up because it's a lot. She's currently in Indiana right now as well. So
she's got that room squared away. July 4th, she's in Indiana,
yeah,
and has left you in charge of everything in that house.
No, my father's here. He's in charge.
Okay.
I'm just visiting. I was in charge of the fireworks. That was my job.
All right. So we now have our survivors.
Yes.
Quarterfinal doubleheaders. And it is at Jerry World and TQL, which is interesting dynamics there in and of itself. Saturday, Panama, Qatar, Mexico, and Costa Rica. Interesting.
Yeah, the Mexico-Costa Rica match, another one where Costa Rica's been a little shaky this tournament. I think they really should be better than they are. I know that we can talk about the generational transition, and there's some old and some young, but they should be better. This is going to be a tough test for Mexico, I think, because Costa Rica's historically always played Mexico tough. And Mexico is clearly not at their peak form, although they had 2 very good first games in this tournament. I think maybe the Qatar match, I think we talked about it, was shocking. They didn't score more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see how that goes, because I think that Costa Rica could knock them off, but I think Mexico might also finally be looking at how they can rise to the occasion. I'm curious to see how Mexico responds to the loss to Qatar. Again, the loss that felt like I couldn't figure out how they lost. I mean, it probably felt like a stab to the heart.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, that's probably not a fun joke to make at this point.
There goes the explicit rating for the morning.
I didn't curse. What are you talking about?
Coco's asking, why do we still let the nation that hosted the last World Championship to play in the Gold Cup? Don't they have their own region to play in?
Well, they're the state sponsored or the state-owned airline is the sponsor of the tournament, Coco.
Yes, as Nick says, Money with several Y's afterward.
Yeah. I don't like it. I'll be quite honest. Now, okay, let's talk Gold Cup format for a second.
Sure.
John, you remember back when it was 12 teams because, that's
because
what it was.
Because I'm 700 years old, yes.
Granted, it was only like 8 years ago, so it's not like it's that far away. So, there we go. Sorry, my computer decided to. So they were at 12 teams, and that was mainly just the CONCACAF teams, because obviously, as you know, CONCACAF, we have 41 member nations. It's tough to truly get a competitive tournament with more than 12.
Mm-hmm.
They expanded to 16 because when Victor Montagnani came into power, one of his big things was to give more teams in CONCACAF more actual competitive games. So they expanded it to 16 total teams, but they could still only get 15. I'm sure they could have figured out another way, but they only got 15 CONCACAF teams, and they left the spot open, the 16 spot open for guest teams.
Wild card, yeah.
Yeah, Qatar, obviously, as the hosts of the last World Cup, in their efforts to make people believe that they were not a inherently evil federation who withheld passports and forced people into Qatari citizenship for attending a summer camp there, decided they would sponsor this tournament, and under the guise of being Asian champions, were invited for the next 2 tournaments. Obviously, AFC has not had their championship yet. That's next summer. So maybe that'll change after this. I think that 15th or that 16th spot will continue to be a guest. I do hope, and I do like the fact that it is the champion of like Asia or Africa. I think that is a legitimately good thing for the federation. It raises the level of play. I think the problem is Qatar. We all understand that the reason Qatar won the last Asian Cup was very dubious and sketchy reasons. They obviously have not been able to replicate any of that success since then, and probably won't be able to henceforth. They're good enough to get out of the group in CONCACAF. But I do think that, like, if you're looking at some other potential Asian champions, adding Japan or Australia or Korea or one of the other Arab nations, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, those types of teams would definitely increase the level here in CONCACAF, and I think that's good. So we're always going to kind of have this. Well, I don't want to say always. CONCACAF could very well change their format tomorrow, but the likelihood is we're going to have this 16th team be a guest team. It just so happens that the one right now is the country that owns the airlines that sponsors the tournament.
For those that don't know, can you go back and kind of let everybody in on the dubious and sketchy when it came to?
So yeah, I think I alluded to it, is that they had a lot of, and they've done this with a lot of their sports. I remember the 2021 Olympics. Their beach volleyball team was like Qatari, but definitely not. So they basically, Qatar has done what a lot of other Arab nations have done, is host camps or training seminars or conglomerations or stuff like that for players. And basically, they came into the country to train and somehow became Qatari citizens. So Qatar used this squad that they assembled through some shady citizenship processes to create their team.
Shady citizenship processes, comma,
Yeah.
no, ...
Yeah, so, and so they won the Asian Championship with this team, and a lot of the AFC fans were very disgusted, I think is a harsh word, but that's probably how they felt of Qatar winning this with players who aren't Qatari but somehow now are Qatari. They we all know how they kind of we all understand the laborers that they used for the stadiums that they built. It wasn't quite like that because they were treated as actual humans, but very similar in the fact that they were kind of invited and then told, "Hey, this is how you're now a Qatari citizen."
Yeah.
That's the best I can explain it.
Going back to 2019, the UAE, which lost to that country in the semifinal back on Tuesday, questioned if two members of the squad, 22-year-old Almoez Ali, a Sudanese-born striker, and 21-year-old Bassam Al-Rawi, a defender who is the son of a former Iraqi international, met FIFA's nationality requirements. Both were born outside Qatar, but would be eligible if either had a parent or grandparent born in the emirate. According to documents, and like I said, this is 2019. According to documents published on websites in the UAE, the mothers of the two soccer players were not born in that country, as has been claimed by the Qatari Federation, according to our friends at the Guardian at the time. And this is, like I said, this is February of 2019, and this might be required reading. John Bruin and Barry Glendenning were a part of all of this. To that email, let's see, published in the UAE. But ahead of the meeting with four-time winners Japan, the AFC issued a short statement to say the matter had been reviewed and closed. Did not respond to questions about how the decision was reached or if the UAE or any other party has the right to appeal the decision. Several UAE websites have suggested the case could have ended up at CAS. But, so that was how that went down all the way back in 2019. And when you bring in a head coach like Carlos Queiroz, who when he was a head coach for another national squad that was in the previous World Cup competition that was in that country that we were discussing, where he didn't want his players to make any kind of social protest. And they did by not singing the anthem in their first match, which was amazing to me. Queiroz basically yelled at a reporter and said, how much are you going to pay me to talk about that? So that's the kind of guy that nation has as a head coach currently as they are in this competition at the Gold Cup. So that does seem that fits, bringing in a guy like Carlos Queiroz now to be the head coach of that particular nation.
Yeah, I mean, I think just the best way to go about this is if there's something to do with Qatar and sports, it's probably shady. Just assume so until they prove otherwise. And again, I think it's very clear that Queiroz is a fairly good coach. I think we all agree with that. He has put this team into good positions, but I don't think talent-wise they're as good as they were to win the Asian Cup. And I don't think that, as we saw at the World Cup, they're actually that good. So
yeah. So that's your update about the previous host of the world competition. And the other semifinals, we spent so much time on previous world championship and teams down here. TQL on Sunday, 5 and 7:30, Guatemala, Jamaica, and the U.S. against some nation called Canada. That I think these two teams have played before.
Yeah, these are both really tasty quarterfinals because Guatemala has been pretty fun to watch this tournament. They're obviously trying to rebuild that program after I forget how many years it was of being banned / suspended. Jamaica, obviously, we've talked about them, how they keep telling us that they're going to be good this time around. Trust us, bro.
We mean it. We really mean it.
We really mean it this time. I promise. But this could be a good opportunity for Jamaica because, I do think that their path to the Gold Cup final is quite easy when you look at the fact that, okay, Guatemala has been a good team, but I think Jamaica is a better team. I think they are more capable. And then in the semifinal, a weakened Mexico team and a not stellar Costa Rica team. It's harder than the U.S.'s path if the U.S. can get past Canada, but it's a good path for Jamaica. They're playing tough teams, but I don't think they're playing in the semifinal, at least teams that are at their best. If they can get past Guatemala, they could be in that final. Guatemala, on the other hand, same thing. They could get past Jamaica, and they've got a large backing of fans behind them, which they have all tournament. That could be a fun semifinal there in Vegas. That one's going to be in Vegas. So yeah, I actually think that semifinal is going to be fun. The U.S.-Canada one, I don't know what to make of this, John, because I don't know what Canada is right now. They, like I said, they beat Cuba, but 4-2, not really, that great. They also got a penalty. They gave up a penalty, but they also got a penalty. 2 draws before that, they just don't seem to be firing at the level they need to. That said, on paper, I think their squad is probably better than the U.S.'s, just based on who's playing. But the U.S. has been operating at a very good level right now. And the last 2 games especially, you saw a very fluid and dynamic team scoring a lot of goals, which I know, we played the island nations, but the fact is you still beat them 6-0 and 6-0. Canada had 2 island nations in their group, and they were unable to really look convincing against either of them. So I don't know. I mean, this is it doesn't feel quite like a trap game per se, but it does feel like a game that the U.S. could possibly get taken if they're not fully up for this, and if you have a couple of bad performances. And I think it's fair to say that the winger play during this World Cup or this Gold Cup has been bad. So you're going to need to improve there. And if you can do that, then I think a victory against Canada should be quite easy.
At Bartimus Prime 19 at SoccerForUSPod, hanging out with us to discuss Gold Cup here from the home casa, the home grounds, the OG grounds for Bart.
Actually, I only lived here. Yeah, this is not my childhood home. I'm a proud son of Snellville, Georgia, South Gwinnett High School. So,
okay.
Yeah, so they moved here after after I was out of the
78 in the Scenic Highway. I know exactly where you are.
Yes, exactly.
All right. So when it comes to, let's do superlatives. Let's do superlatives, good and bad. We'll start. You want to start with teams' biggest disappointment, biggest surprise, or do you want to go with the U.S. squad biggest disappointment, biggest surprise?
Well, we can do teams because I think this is a little bit easier to run through.
Okay.
Disappointing teams, I'm going to give you two, and it's just because they were in the final round of qualifying last time around and they didn't even make it out of the group. We're going to go El Salvador and Honduras.
Mhm.
Honduras and El Salvador not making it out of their groups. El Salvador not in a tough group, but not that tough of a group to the point where you would have said, okay, now's a good time to show that you're, you're ready. I don't know. That to me, especially given all the hype people have given El Salvador, is quite disappointing. Honduras, I think they're going to struggle for this next. I think they're lucky that qualifying for this next World Cup doesn't include the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. But I'm disappointed in how they've been, especially considering they were in the Nations League finals in 2021. To see them not even make it out of the group stage here is very disappointing.
So then, who gets the Bart Keeler Soccer for US POD thumbs ups for either overachieving or taking care of business?
Guatemala. I think that's been. Winning that group against Canada, getting a draw against them, holding them to 0 goals is pretty impressive. They've been playing fun. I think the atmosphere they've provided in all their stadiums has been really cool too. So that to me is a big plus. Honestly, I think they've been. I don't want to say overachieving, probably overachieving, but they're proving that they might be a very tough team, kind of the team that we got accustomed to late 90s, early 2000s, that was always a thorn in the U.S.'s side.
All right, when it comes to the U.S. squad in and of itself, now I know that when you take 2 sets and you get a double bagel, winning two of them 6-0, 6-0. Felt like Bud Collins there for a second since we're in Wimbledon. When you go into this round of 8, who has stood out for you and who has been just, who has been something that should have been refrigerated that's hanging out in the kitchen and just went bad? Who has done well for you? Who has met expectations?
Yeah.
Who gets an S? Who gets an N? Who gets a U? We'll treat it like the old conduct cards in high school. When you got satisfactory, needs improvement, or unsatisfactory, who gets those grades in conduct for the Gold Cup so far?
So let's start with the negatives right now, because I think the two that have been the most negative are, well, I'll give you 3 actually. Zendejas has been disappointing. I think a lot of people expected a lot better from him, and he's been ineffective and hasn't really influenced the game at all. The other one is Alan Zanora, who has been also ineffective. I think other midfielders have looked a lot better. When Gianluca Busio is outclassing you, I get that the competition level is different, but even Senora coming in against those teams hasn't been that great. And then I think the other one is probably Jordan Morris, who I understand has kind of been dealing with an injury, but Cade Cowell has taken advantage of his opportunity, especially that game against who did we just play? Trinidad. Sorry, yeah, Trinidad was the last game. Yeah. He took advantage of that opportunity. He didn't look great against St. Kitts, but a good bounce back against Trinidad. I think those 3 have been disappointing, especially Morris, who I think we were expecting to still be at a good level, and not being there is very disappointing.
I thought so. Then who has? You mentioned Cade Cowell in the turnaround, especially after the one performance.
I don't think he's in he's been impressive. I think he's just been better than Jordan Morris. And when Jordan Morris has been bad, I don't know. I'm still in the camp of Cade Cowell is fine.
Mm-hmm. Fine.
I'm not quite sure what his ceiling is. He may be at his ceiling. His ceiling may be Jordan Morris, which isn't a bad ceiling. That's not what I'm saying. It's just, I don't know where his best level will end up being, but he's been fun to watch. There's that.
So who has done well? Who are your senior superlatives from the group stage for the U.S.?
I think the 3 that have done well, and I think we talked about this last time, Jalen Neal has been very good. And again, I think, the 2 defenders, actually all 3 of these guys are defensive players. You have to obviously caveat that with the fact that, the teams we're playing are not the best quality. Right?
Yeah.
But they're all 3 very young. and they all three have a chance to contribute to the team going forward. One is also Brian Reynolds, who I think that right back position is not necessarily up for grabs by any stretch, but a position where that second spot may be up for grabs, right? I think Joe Scally has a great chance, but Joe Scally could also just be your backup left back, you know? And we saw Berhalter take, 3 right backs to the World Cup last November, and I don't think that there's anyone who has on the left side who has like shown out enough to be really that good. Caleb Wiley's not there yet, but hopefully he gets his chance. So I think that's a possibility where you can be like, okay, you can be your backup right back, where both Scally and Dest are kind of the left back options. So that's a good one for Brian Reynolds. He's been very good. And the other one is James Sands. Again, hard to kind of really tell based on the opponents we've played from a defensive side, but I think he's done a good job of keeping the offensive progression going.
All right. As we go through this and obviously continue to analyze and analyze and analyze and analyze, I know a lot of folks, and I know that I think Christian Roldan, I think, was another one that you have not been.
I don't think about him.
You blocked him out, basically?
Like, I'm tired of seeing him. I don't know why he keeps getting called up. He does nothing. That's false. He's actually been okay. He just doesn't do anything that I don't see why another player couldn't also get the call up and be there. I mean, especially if you're talking Roldan, like a guy like Richie Ledesma getting a chance to reinsert himself in the team, who could both play in the midfield and on the wing. I'm tired of Roldan. I really just am. I'm sorry. It's just at the point where he doesn't make us better. He doesn't.
So then, all right,
I'm sure he's really cool and the coaches love him, and that's fine. He doesn't. He's too old for that. I'm sorry. He's not good enough. He's not fricking Megan Rapinoe, who's won Golden Ball, Golden Boot, scored goals in a World Cup. He's fricking Christian Roldan throughout 4 Gold Cups. His only contribution is 3 assists. Like, stop. He's not contributing to this team. Do not bring him back to any U.S. team for the first ever. I'm sorry. I have zero need for him to be in a U.S. squad ever again.
So then, all right, all things being equal, if Major League Soccer schedule or professional schedules had no bearing on turning a roster, who would make this group better in its current context? I mean, obviously, if you can't bring in the big guns, and there were some decisions that were on the floor that could have made this team better, would it have been, say, a Brooks Lennon versus a DeAndre Yedlin, that kind of a decision? What decisions in your mind could have made this group better?
I think Brooks would have been a fun one. I don't know if he would have made him better, right? Because I still think Brian Reynolds is clearly at a very good level. I would have liked to have seen Keaton Parks or Richie Ledesma. I think Keaton Parks specifically is one that a lot of U.S. fans have wanted to see. Now that we think that he is like this fantastic player, but if you're looking for a guy who can, there it is, Abby. You left and it went off.
I thought that was just another. I thought that was a phone call. Someone who was trying to solicit something.
I think Keaton Parks would be the one, because he's at that level where I want him to show out in a Gold Cup, get that chance in a Gold Cup, because I think it's a level that would allow him to be both comfortable but also show out and get accustomed to the international game. He's also kind of that not two-way necessarily player, but a both defensive and offensive player who can help you on both sides of the ball. That would be the guy that I think would have actually helped, especially when you're talking about like a Roldan, Senora, even Busio. Like, I don't know, Busio's looked really good. That's fine, but like Senora and Roldan, I think I would have liked to seen Keaton Parks over them just to see what he can give us, because those two have kind of shown us that he can't.
Okay.
So
all right. So are you heading back in toward your normal abode?
Yeah, I'll be home probably. I haven't decided if I'll leave at lunch or after work. We'll see.
Okay. Well, so Bart's going to get back into the real world. What's the latest with Soccer for USPod now that the U.S. Women's National Team show has dropped?
Yeah, so we'll see if we can record this week. Obviously, the holiday threw all of our schedules off, so hopefully we can record tonight or tomorrow night. Kind of a quick recap of the group stage of the Gold Cup, and talk a little bit more about Greg Berhalter and those types of things.
All right. That is at Bartimus Prime 19 at SoccerForUSPod. Bart, get back into the real world. We'll catch up with you soon. And since it's 10 o'clock, all right, I'm gonna give Dylan Butler an amazing amount of credit.
Oh, amazing amount.
I'm going to give you, sir, an amazing amount of credit.
All right.
Because we read your story about El Trafico.
Yeah.
And the first thing that I looked at,
the timeline,
the timestamp.
yeah.
The timestamp.
Here's on that.
Man, 2:25 on a timestamp.
Yep.
And it was a long night for you. And you went through everything that Steve Gerondolo said in a 2-1 loss. First off, what? How serious is that cup of coffee, and what's the mug this morning?
We are blessed, I guess, right? To be awake. It's cup number 1.
Okay.
I had to drop my daughter off at summer camp this morning, so bright and early up this morning, so not much sleep last night, but it was worth it. It was what El Trafico, what you hope it to be, right? Like, it wasn't the 4 goals that you always see, but plenty of drama, some incredible plays. 82,000 pack in the Rose Bowl, right? It was on the East Coast. You only wish it was an earlier game, but listen, you get it. It was well worth the 4 hours plus of sleep that I got last night.
So did you budget in a nap leading into it, or
Yeah, no, I'm an idiot. So what I budgeted in between, like, so I had the MLS shift from 9 to 2 yesterday.
Okay.
And then I had match night 23 from like 7:30 on.
Mm-hmm.
So what I budgeted in between that was 2 hours of yard work and mowing. And by the end of it, I looked like my shirt and everything. I looked like I had just played a 90-minute match in Houston in the afternoon. Like, it was brutal. So I got a shower. I got a little bit of a small break, I guess you can call it, and then on to the match night. So
okay. Bam, our resident Australian viewer listener, has been pretty much hot all through the first hour of the show because we talked about your story and LAG getting the win. And Bam is like living in Australia, and he's in charge of like the LAFC podcast, big LAFC fan down there, and he hangs out with us. He said for him a 12:45 in the afternoon kick was perfect because, well, Australia.
Sure.
And what the hell is wrong with LAFC? I'm just going to phrase it that way. What the hell's wrong with them right now?
I mean, it's a great question, right? You can't. I don't think, and I think to Cherundolo's credit, like, you can talk about the call-ups and the injuries and all that kind of stuff, but he's not seemingly using that as an excuse. He's like, look, he said it's not exclusive to LAFC, right? Like, how many times have we come on here and talked about these different teams who have a host of injuries, Sporting Kansas City, others, right? Like, you just got to deal with it. It's MLS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I thought they were a deep team, so I thought that they'd be able to weather the congestion of the early season schedule, the run to CCL, call-ups and injuries. But I don't know. It doesn't seem to be that way. I mean, over the course of 90 minutes, just from an observer in New York watching on my TV, it just felt like the Galaxy, and I hate to simplify it this much, it just felt like the Galaxy wanted it more, right? And like, you even saw that, you even heard Taylor Twellman talking about it so perfectly on that last goal from Ricky Pooch. Like, he just made that run. Like, he was willing himself to get in that box, and no one was going to get that ball. And you didn't feel that same sense of urgency, I thought, from LAFC. Now, that being said, as I said in the article, the West, as it is very, very forgiving, right? So They've been on this horrible run. They've lost 3 in a row in the league, 8 of 11. Obviously, dropped the Champions League, but they're like a win or 2 away from being top of the table in the West, right? So we are certainly seeing at this part of the season how crazy good and how wild the East is going to be, and kind of how mediocre the West is right now.
I mean, you look at the standings, and because we can extrapolate, folks. All caps SC would be 4th-ish, I think, or 4th or 5th. Actually, they'd be 4th because goal difference has them at plus 15. So all caps, if they were in the East, City SC, they would be 4th right now because of Columbus at 35 points. Then Seattle and LAFC, both at 32 points, and they would be 7th and 8th in the East right now. That's where the top 3 teams in the West would be if you moved them over into the Eastern Conference right now. You mentioned just how absolutely, wacky, crazy, stupid it is. And
imagine having that single table like England or Germany or every other country.
Yeah, I know. And then you got to look at wins as your tiebreakers and things like that. Thank you, Nick. I'm trying to figure out, all right, who's gonna fit where. As we get into happy transfer window for those who celebrate.
Yeah.
Who needs to do some serious damage here in the trade window? I guess we could treat this as red light, yellow light, green light. Okay, who needs to do the most? Who needs to boogie the most in the transfer window? Who's kind of cool as they are, and who can kind of do a tweak one way or the other? Who could sit there and go, okay, you do 1 or 2 things and you could do really well? Who has to make the most out of this window right now in Major League Soccer?
Well, I guess along with that is sort of like who's got the ability to, and who would be a contender, right? Like I think Toronto FC, as an example, are just dead in the water, right? Like they can't do anything. They're guys that they spend a lot of money on are headbutting dudes, and it's just not a good look in Toronto. So I wouldn't say Toronto. I think certainly I think NYCFC will make a move for a number 9. They'll figure that dude out. So they'll do their thing, and we already know what Salt Lake did, which is an incredible move. I think I'm team Real Salt Lake in the West at this point because they've been really, really low key good, right? Like when you can get as many points as they have on the road. Now they haven't won at home, obviously, but you bring a Chicho Arango into that. Diego Luna's doing his thing. Damir Krylak is healthy again. They're good, man. Like I think they're a team to look out for. So they've already obviously done their business there by getting a number 9. I think Atlanta's going to do some work, obviously. I think they're setting themselves up to make a big move. I think this window is going to be really interesting just because of so many teams in the mix, and I don't know if it's catching up or trying to keep up with Inter Miami, but it feels like for your team to be relevant, you need to make some sort of a splash in this window. Now we know that LAG cannot.
Yeah.
But I'm also interested in what they can do too, right? Like sort of how do you tweak and maneuver and kind of backdoor your way into maybe getting a winger somewhere?
Well, and you mentioned Messi and friends. And so let me posit it this way. How many folks should just look at what they're attempting to do and sit there and go, that's their dance. They're going to do whatever they're going to do. They're going to spend $11 billion, and that's on them if they want to spend it on 30-somethings and still not fix their defense and whatever, But then other folks are going to sit there and go, oh, my God, RSL has done what they've done. Inter Miami's doing what they're doing, and it's the scene of Kevin in Home Alone going up and down the hallway trying to figure out. It's like, who is going to line themselves up in mass panic like that, and then who should just kind of sit there and go like, bruh, I think that we're going to do our thing. Don't worry about that. But the shiny objects always seem to get you, though.
For sure, yeah, and I think the teams that I think the team look, a lot of teams have those identities, right? Like in the league, we know Red Bull, for example, and they're not going to go out and get that 30-something La Liga star, right? Like that's not the way they do it anymore. I wish they would, because it was fun, covering the likes of Thierry Henry when he was here, and Tim Cahill and the like. But Rafa Marquez not so much. But
no.
But they have their way of doing things, right? Philly have their way of doing things. We know that NYCFC, similar to like in Atlanta, they'll go and they'll find that young South American up and coming player and bring him in, right? Like that's just the way that they do their business. Others, their identity is sort of, we're not sure, like Chicago, Salt Lake, like LAFC, similar. Well, they're kind of a mixed bag, I guess, right? Because like they do bring in the young up and coming player, but they also obviously go out and spend a lot on a Bale and a Chiellini and guys like that. So, again, I think the teams that we mentioned will do business in this window, and with so many teams alive with the extra playoff spots as well, I think it's going to make this an even busier secondary transfer window than we've seen before, right? Because there's so many teams it's not a good look, I think, if you don't make the playoffs in a year where you expand the playoff field. So
yeah.
Hey, I know Bam is watching, listening. I got is he hitting up a couple of those Women's World Cup matches? Watching the Matildas, maybe?
I don't know. That's a good question. Bam, are you going to be doing Women's World Cup stuff? Our previous guest, Bart Keeler, who does the Soccer for US podcast, is going down.
Nice.
And so Bart is leaving after I think it's the Vietnam match on the 21st. He's leaving to go down, and he's not just going to be spending time watching the U.S. He does have U.S. tickets, but he's going to be in both Australia and New Zealand. And so he'll be bouncing back and forth. And Bam says hopefully he's going to make it to games, but his work schedule could make it tough. That whole real world thing getting in the way.
Yeah, for sure. How about 80,000 for Australia's first match against Ireland over here?
Fantastic. Fantastic.
And by the way, just a shameless plug for OSDB, just did this past Monday 10 players to watch, and it was fun. It was like a mix of of the names of the Alex Morgans and the Martas, but also bringing in some younger players, maybe who are up and coming. Who this could be a big Lauren Hemp, for example, for England. This could be a big World Cup for them. So a mix there for OSDB. And then this upcoming Monday, we will look at, we already took a look at the contenders. We'll look at teams that are maybe on that next grouping that we expect should get out of the group stage and maybe make a push. Australia being one of them.
Okay, so since you've gone down this road, we'll go down this road. And also we have one of our correspondents is going to be one of the students at the journalism school at the University of Georgia, and they have a group that is going down to cover the group stage.
That's awesome.
And so he's a guy that we've worked with and doing play-by-play for colleges and things like that. And so he's now at the University of Georgia in their graduate program for journalism. They're going down, and he's going to be a part of it too. So we'll have Bart and Luke Winstall, hopefully, if we can figure out the times, coming on live on the show with us to talk about stuff. To your OSDB column story that has just posted, let me ask you this. You said you had 10. Mm-hmm. How difficult was it to get to 10, and who did you have to leave off if it was difficult to get to 10?
I didn't do it. I hear what you're saying. A lot of times when you do a list, like you just sort of like off the top of your head start throwing names and maybe you have 15 and 20, then you got to whittle it down. So it wasn't hard to get to 10, but I didn't go beyond 10, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I did the list. I said, we have one more. I'm going to go with this player. Like, so I didn't, I'm sure look, there's certainly players that I've left off. There's no doubt about it. But what's really fun, I think, in this, you've got Ballon d'Or winners, you've got, World Cup winners, you've got, European Championship winners, all in that mix. So like when you have that sort of resume, it's a little bit hard to certainly leave them off, but to go someone else. But like I said, I wanted to try to mix it up. I went with like a Sam Kerr, obviously, as a household name, and a Marta and Alex Morgan, like I said, but like a Lauren Hemp, with the injuries up front that England have, I think she's gonna play a prominent role for them. But a lot of, Sophia Smith, I think this could be her breakout. I'm not breaking news there. I think a lot of people are thinking that for the U.S.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a look at sort of, different players, different teams. But one thing I thought was interesting with a Brazil, and I don't have them as one of the teams, one of the favorites, but I do have them as a team that could make some noise, is a lot of the chatter from them is they're trying to treat this World Cup with Marta as a similar to what Argentina did with Messi.
Yeah.
So they're trying to win it from Marta as they did with Messi, because this would appear to be her last World Cup. So, that motivation, that extra motivation should be interesting.
From our friends at Vegas Insider, Brazil is in the top 10, by the way.
Fair, because I think I had 5 and 5. So yeah, that makes sense.
Brazil is at a plus 2,800, courtesy of our friends at Bet365, and Japan is also at plus 2,800. So I guess they're both Team 9. Netherlands are 8th at a plus 2,500. Sweden is a plus 1,800. Australia, there's a big gap between 6 and 7. Australia is number 6 at plus 1,000, understandably so. France at a plus 900 is number 5. Germany is plus 600 along with Spain, so they're T3. So that leaves England at a plus 300 at number 2, and the U.S. favored at Bet365 at a plus 225.
Let's see, what did I have for my contender? I'm going to go back. It doesn't match up exactly, but I had the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
I had England. I had Germany. I had Sweden.
Okay.
And France.
Okay, so
those are my 5.
1, 2, 4, 5, 7, according to Bet365. That's what you've got.
And I can't tell you my next 5 because that'll be on Monday.
Then that's what I'm saying. I don't want you. It's like I want to drive people to the article. I'm looking for traffic.
But I do have. What are the other ones you mentioned?
What?
Australia.
You had 1, 2, 4, 5, 7. You had USA, England, Germany, France, 1, 2, 4, 5. Australia's at 6. Sweden's at 7. Spain was at number 3, and then there's a big gap between 7 and 8. With Netherlands, Japan, Brazil, 8, 9, 10.
Netherlands, Japan, Brazil. So I would say that I've got at least a few different teams on there for my knockout round contenders.
Okay. That you've got Canada at a plus 4,000 outside the top 10.
They might be there on mine.
Norway is at a plus 5,000.
They also might be there.
South Korea is at a plus 5,000. I mean, so you're giving folks some juice boxian stuff here, man. I mean, folks are sitting there and they go to OSDB, they sit there and look at Dylan's and they look at Bet365. They go, oh, okay, man, the plus 5,000. Maybe I'll put a couple of juice boxes from the back of the fridge on some of that stuff. I see how this works. Bam has a non-related football question.
Yeah.
And wanted to know if you got to make it to San Diego for the lacrosse championships and your thoughts on how Denmark went.
I wish I did. That would have been amazing. I've not been I've not been to San Diego. Have only heard great things about it. I didn't watch the championship game live because of MLSing on Saturday night. Tried to stay off of socials as best I could.
Yeah.
I was spoiled, but then I watched the U.S.-Canada championship game on Sunday morning. I got to say, like, I know this is very much Wall Pass Wednesday-ish, but like international rules for lacrosse are terrible. Like there's no shot clock. That's the biggest one. There's no shot clock. Like, and it's running time. Like it's so bad. Like I don't get it. Like you would think the international game would be right up with what college and the pros have. Like the shot clock is coming to high schools in New York in 2 years' time. Like, how do you have an international competition and not have a shot clock? It's crazy. And I said, by the way, on our Slack chat last night during all the matches in MLS, is there a crazier position to play in sports than lacrosse goalie?
Especially indoor lacrosse.
No, but at least then you're super padded up. Like you look like you're a
yeah.
In the outdoor game, like you've got like really very little padding. Like you've got a chest protector, you've got a helmet, maybe a neck protector, some shoulder pads, but there's below the waist, you've got nothing going on there, and it's like 100 miles an hour plus these balls. Like a hockey goalie is crazy as well, but at least again, you're padded up.
Mm-hmm.
These lacrosse goalies are a different breed.
Yeah, and for those not familiar, do a little your required reading on the day. I think it was in the Guardian. There's a great story on the Haudenosaunee and how they are trying to chase after world titles too. So very, very cool stuff there. Toronto FC popped in. Yeah, exactly. Universal laughter out amongst the stars, paraphrasing our friend Jimmy Buffett. Another red for them in play. Bernadeschi again decided that he wanted to, push and maul and do whatever. It just seems like it's completely and totally off the rails. I mean,
and he seems like he doesn't want to be there, right? Like when you have a red like that, like you realize that one, your team is already shorthanded. You're on the road. You're in Orlando. Your team is struggling. Like you're a veteran. Like you would think your reaction is more to help your team out. And then he does that nonsense. And then you see him smirking, kind of leaving the field. That's not a good look. That I mentioned his name before. That echoes back to a Rafa Marquez, like just, not given any issues when he was with the Red Bulls. So, I don't know. It is a colossal mess there. Now, that being said, I think they're gonna. It's still a very desirable place to go if you're a manager, right? Yeah. So they should land probably a big name there, right? Like we've seen some names, obviously, sort of being banned.
Okay, so who have you seen get floated out there?
I mean, I think just from the previous kind of stuff, like you would hear about Vieira, where he had interviewed when Armas got the job. You hear the folks on MLS 360 talking about a Gattuso or others of that ilk. I don't know. I mean, at least Vieira's got the MLS backgrounds.
Yeah. And so I understand that. I mean, that before he took the gig at Strasbourg, I mean, I understand that idea of having a Patrick Vieira attached to something like that. And that Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment is going to spend money.
Yes.
That they Bill Manning is just like, and the one thing that got to me, and it was a quote from Manning, and it kind of rubbed me the absolute wrong way, where Manning after the firing, he has his thing, and let me find the quote. Okay. Left no doubt how he feels about Insigne and Bernadeschi's contributions. We do expect them to help lead this team to victory. Does Manning care how exactly the team get back to winning ways? No, quote, I want to win. No one remembers how you play. I don't want to describe a style of play. I don't want Bill Manning saying things like that. I understand the idea about, just win, baby, and just win and get out of the cellar. But I don't want my big boss saying that kind of stuff when you're trying to bring in a coach. It's like, I don't care. I don't care. You want to have a philosophy. You want to have a style of play. No one remembers how you play. I don't want to describe a style of play. What is that from Bill Manning?
I don't know. I mean, I don't even know if you could call it a glass half full, because maybe a quarter full here, but I would maybe a little bit to his defense.
Mhm.
You and I are big Law and Order fans, so this is a hard one to defend, but I would say if I was a defense lawyer here, that maybe he's just trying to open it up to all possible candidates.
Okay.
Where he's saying, listen, if he says we want to play attractive football, we want to kick the ball around, we want to knock it around, keep possession. Now that maybe means, I don't know, a Red Bull-ish coach, Jesse Marsh, for example, wouldn't be interested in that. You know what I mean? Like, so no, I don't think they're going to go and press, obviously, not with the group they have, but I think maybe if I were to defend him here, Your Honor, I would say that's maybe what I would come up with. It's more about talking through the press to potential candidates, saying we are open to all.
And I mean, that is, I mean, I understand where you're coming from with the Shambhala Green, Daniel Mellman approach when it comes to defense attorneys here. It's just when you see someone who is of that stature, and like I said, I'm not going to look at it like your defense attorneys, even though the marathon was great last night because they were in season 4, so it was some early stuff. I want to have quotes from my big boss sitting there saying, all right, I want us to do X, Y, and Z. I want to have this I want to have this team doing this so we can build on it going forward. So that means that we need these kinds of players that want to be here, that kind of a thing. So, I mean, that was kind of where I was staring at it with Bill Manning. And then you lose to the purple team 4-0, and that kind of sent folks sideways. I think they're reading more. I don't know if folks are reading more into it because it was 4-0 and Toronto just isn't that good. And then Orlando, they're doing well. And then Oscar Pereja, God bless him, he tries to find ways not to make the playoffs later in the year. But
they saw a wounded team and they took care of their business, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, that's basically what you could say with what Orlando did. And they put their foot down and made sure that they got those 3 points. They didn't keep Toronto in the game. Toronto didn't keep themselves in the game, obviously, but I think a job well done there. And then the other talking point from last night, I think, is a big win for DC.
Yeah.
Without a Benteke, who was one of, I think, 38 players suspended on yellow card accumulation last night. It was a night of the yellow card accumulation suspensions.
Yes. It sounds like a George Romero movie.
And they moved things around, and Tyler Miller was not in goal, which Wayne Rooney kind of danced around. They said, listen, we wanted to have some fresh legs and fresh minds. Tyler
Miller goes walkabout. That's just how he's wired.
Because he said, because there's only one goalie, obviously there's more attention on that position. But I thought a really good 3 points for them as they now go home and take on Miami, who are awaiting Tata's arrival, and Messi and friends, and exactly. Joseph doing his thing last night with an incredible goal.
Yeah, from 10 yards out. So that's pretty much, where Joseph is. But all right. So what is your weekend like getting ready for what did you get? Please tell me that you at least got the early matches on Saturday to look at.
No, I mean, basically the way it goes on a Saturday is I kind of kick off at 8:30-ish,
Okay.
basically when I get my daughter to bed. And then it's 8:30 on till end.
Okay. All right. So just wanted to double check. Just so go get your coffee, go get your nap, and continue.
Yeah, nap, you're funny.
Hey.
Pick up is at noon.
Well, okay, because I was thinking it's like, all right, summer camp. I was thinking it might be a little longer than just.
Yeah, no, I wish. My daughter was asking me, like, did you go to summer camp, Daddy, when you were a kid? I said, yeah. I said, your grandma sent me away for 2 months to go away camp.
All day.
Whole day. At night, though. I was gone for 2 months.
Yeah. It's like, you're out of here. Done. So, I had summer camp too, but it was, 10 miles from the house or 10 minutes from the house. And all you had to do is be there at like 7:30 in the morning. And then they pick you up at 5.
Mine was a bus. I think it was a bus in Manhattan. I think we left from in maybe early July, early August. Early August, she's able to go up. It was honestly, now that I think back to it, it was almost like I was imprisoned because she had a 2-day, I think, visitation between July and August, and then August through, and then the bus came back to Manhattan, and that was it. And maybe a week or two later, it's time for school. So.
Yeah, it's like, and then, Labor Day.
Not rid of me.
So there you go. I'm right there with you. All right, my friend, get in your cat nap and be there with your daughter, and we'll catch up with you next week.
All right, buddy.
There we go. Dylan Butler, who is blessed, and he's going to go drink coffee and maybe get in a nap. He's no doubt blessed. Getting a cat nap before he has to get his daughter from the Dayside summer camp. Yeah, because summer camp for me it literally was all day. I mean, it was like Dylan said, it was a 2-month thing. But my grandfather, who was Army Air Corps, he knew about getting up at the crack of before dawn 30. So him picking me up at home at 7 o'clock to be at camp by 7:30, to be there all day long, that was an easy one for him. He was ready to go. He's ringing the doorbell. He's ringing the doorbell 7 o'clock, ringing the doorbell. Get down here. You got to go to camp. Get in the car, drive the 10 minutes. All right, I'll see you at 5. Okay. For 2 straight months, Monday through Friday. At least you get to spend weekends at home. The Kittredge Summer Camp. You spend a lot of time at the pool, diving off of the 10-meter board. Tafka discussing Insigne and Bernadeschi. 1, some players are not used to having every match being a competitive battle. Welcome to MLS. 2, some players aren't used to being on subpar teams respective to the league. Welcome to MLS. MLS is simply harder than what you thought it would be. Welcome to MLS. Yeah, just ask our boy Blaise Matuidi about that. If this league was low quality, it wouldn't be so much of a struggle. And I know Insigne is a good goals to assist rate, but he has not dominated this league by any stretch of the imagination. Correct. And Tafka also saying that the desire to go to Saudi Arabia confirms it. So, it's bad. Sharif, we have not discussed the Gutman transfer rumor yet. And we've seen the reports that it looks like, and like I said, happy window to all those who celebrate, that it appears it's going to be an international slot and some Garber bucks. International slot and Garber bucks. And so we'll keep an eye on that and see if that is in fact the case, and see how everything all lays out. As we've said so far, the only things that have been done pre-window, non-Messi, who still has not signed his deal yet, and the same with Sergi Busquets. Aaron Bupenza to FC Cincinnati for $7 million. Chicho Arango and Nelson Palacio totaling $8 million to RSL. Sneaky good work by RSL. Timu Pukki is a DP to Minnesota United. And when that was announced, we kind of got into it, and we were wondering, okay, Teemu Pukki is fairly one-sided in the pitch when it comes to his play. I don't know how much defensive work Teemu Pukki is going to do at Minnesota United for Adrian Heath, but they feel that he's going to be the scorer that he was, I guess, in the championship. So we'll see what happens there. Not necessarily sold. It's fun to see someone like Teemu Pukki, who did so well in the championship and led a very poor Premier League side in scoring with double-digit goals. Fun to see him here, but I don't know about his productivity. And then Ousmane Doumbia signing as a DP for Chicago Fire. So that's what we have so far. Nothing yet this morning to see what is going on. But obviously, as we say, follow your sources, set your notifications, check the number of followers when you see a rumor. It's always going to be important in transfer windows. Check the followers, check the fake accounts that might have an extra consonant or an extra vowel or an underscore, something like that. Check the fake accounts. We'll see what happens. Knicks is wanting to throw Chris Armas back into the mix in Toronto. Knicks went to camp, go for 2 weeks and stay. Canoe slalom champ, 2 years running. Nicely done. Ricky never went to camp, but he is putting his son in camp. Emilio is asking about how much GAM everybody would be happy with. Yeah, and Emilio, when we get an official GG update, obviously we'll spread it around. Remember, Mike and Jason have stoppage time on the 92.9 The Game Facebook page at 2 o'clock. So, obviously the question is, Ronald moving to the left, Caleb to the back line. See what happens. I know that there was a discussion about bringing Bello back in, but would George Bello fit now? That's the biggest thing. Would he fit what they want to do? We also talked about Tristan Muyumba, the defensive mid from Guignamp, who is part and parcel to the discussion, but it would make sense if Gutman was to leave. Then if you had Muyumba come in as an international slot, and remember the deal, if you want to look at it straight financially, basically it was a waiver claim because Red Bulls couldn't figure it out. They couldn't figure out how all the transfer certificates, and Celtic couldn't figure out how to make it work. So Atlanta United put in a waiver claim. And so whatever piece of business it is, if it does come to pass, you've done a good piece of business. So we'll see what happens if the Andrew Gutman to Colorado rumor comes to fruition. And obviously we'll sit there and we'll play with it, but back and forth. And we talked about it yesterday. And Tom, to your point about George Bello has not played a whole lot in the last 2 seasons. But since we're talking about George Bello for the moment, every single time I get on the transfer mark, they ask me a question. So George Bello's numbers, he is currently at without Club FC. Rolling through what happened with Arminia Bielefeld. 2 seasons, 21 matches. From our friends at Transfermarkt. He had 21 matches in Bundesliga 2, 760 minutes. And then he played in both legs of the relegation playoff when they did end up heading up to the Bundesliga 3. So Let's see if we can break down Bello's 21 matches over the span of a season. Going all the way back to July. 18 minutes, 86 minutes, 18, 29 on the bench. 3, 7, 3 on the bench. Started finally. And you work your way through. So, George Bello, don't know where Bello would be going. And speaking of naps, Jackson Ewell, thank you, Ricky. Jackson Ewell replacing Alan Senora. And we'll keep an eye on that. But speaking of naps, we talked about Dylan and naps. It's a late night for this guy who is currently, are you in Denver at the moment?
Yeah, I'm actually eating breakfast, recovering from my encounter with Rapid Man.
Yes, and for those that follow Jarrett on Twitter, there is a picture of Jarrett and Rapid Man. So, Jarrett,
That's a highlight of my night.
Yeah, well, considering that it was Rapid Man, it was Mother Nature giving conflicting weather in Commerce City, Colorado. Winds going one way, storms going another way. You're in the middle of it all. 2 weather delays later, and you'd had enough for a game that was officially abandoned at the half, I want to say, with Portland and Colorado. So how was Commerce City, Colorado?
So here's the thing, man. Ricky didn't get my money back. We played 45 minutes. I had right around halftime. I started heading back up the concourse because there's really no shelter. There's like these covers in the concourses, the east and west concourses, but they're not very good. And when the wind blows in sideways, you might as well be standing out in the rain.
Mm-hmm.
So it started raining again. I went and stood in the concourse. I'm like, I'm just gonna go ahead and call a lift. And of course, the 4th of July price surging. So I'm like, if I just order it now and wait for an hour, I won't pay a ton of money. We're just going to do that because, all the rest of the stadiums out here are just downtown. You can throw a rock to them.
Yeah.
Like I can throw a rock right now to where the Avs play. Commerce City's out in the middle of nowhere.
Yes, it is.
It's like 15-minute drive on the interstate, but it's just like all this stuff is close by. And then Commerce City is just they put the Rapids way the hell out there, man.
Because the real estate was cheap for Stan Kroenke to build his own soccer-specific stadium.
It is basically the Rapids got relegated to the kids' table at Thanksgiving.
Yes, that is absolutely true, especially where KSE is concerned.
Yeah. I called a lift and I stood around like, It was eventually by the time I left, like they hadn't restarted. They weren't going to restart. Like it was just supercell after supercell hitting. Talking to Mile High last night about it. Like this has just been like par for the course lately. But I mean, look, it is another stadium off my checklist.
Yes.
It was like the forecast wasn't calling for rain.
Yes.
It
opened the ish up, brother.
It opened up, man. Like I sent y'all stuff. I sent stuff on the Discord and on Twitter too. Of like, man, it was coming down in sheets. I think we had 3 or 4 people run on the field.
Mm-hmm.
One of whom I don't know if they just got tired of dealing with it. And like, it's not worth the processing. One of which they escorted him over to the bleachers again. They let him jump the fence. He just casually walked up. I don't know if they ever detained him.
No.
Just like, dude, just go.
It's like,
just
bruh,
get out of here.
Bruh, just don't do it again. Injury update. Yorga Shakamakis from Doug Robertson of the AJC. Questionable for Saturday's MLS match at Montreal. Status week to week, according to a person with knowledge of the situation. So, hamstring injury, questionable for Montreal. And he is week to week. Mike also makes the point With Canada and Guatemala still both staying alive in the Gold Cup, Montreal will be without Aaron Herrera and Zachary Brault-Guillard against Atlanta, 28 appearances, 19 starts. So Gigi's week to week with a hamstring. At least it's that, because initially, Jarrett, that was some scary stuff, seeing Georgi Giacomakis just hit the deck away from the play. But at least it is now officially week to week when it comes to Georgis and the hamstring all over again.
Yeah, man, it was kind of that thing where you were hoping with Yorgos that he felt something pull but not pop, and he was just really frustrated because I mean, we had talked about this before, man, but muscle injuries like that, they just take a long time to heal.
Yep.
And they're frustratingly long is probably the best word to describe for it. Yeah. Because like you'll feel like, man, I'm good, we're all set. And then, run out there and it'll tighten up on you. It's just so hard. Like, rest is what you have to give it, but it's hard to know how much rest to give it.
Yeah.
Because every human body is different. So glad he's questionable. That's better than like, hey man, he did long-term damage and now he's going to miss 3 months. You hope it's like, you hope he's, I don't know, man. If Eric Lopez is available to go this week, part of me would be tempted to tell Yorgos to take the week off. And I know he's going to have a week. He's going to miss 6 days in between games. But it's one of those, you'd rather miss 1 or 2 games than 1 or 2 months.
Yes.
So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, glad it's not any worse. And I see Bart is in hell right now with Jackson Ewell.
Yes, that is absolutely true.
Sorry,
yes. Bart has already done his salvo when it comes to Jackson Ewell. So Bart is less than pleased with that particular decision.
It could have been worse. You could have been standing with me in a supercell last night in Colorado. Wandering around.
That is absolutely true. So, yeah. So there's that. So the news on Georgi Giacomakis, and we have Jarrett and his adventure in Commerce City, Colorado. So we were, welcome to the beginning of the transfer window, Jarrett. I mean, we talked about that. We talked about, didn't get your thoughts on El Trafico. Dylan had the late duty, and so Dylan got to write that story with a byline of 225 this morning. And so, LAG with a win over LAFC, and Bam has been cursing up a storm this morning too. So it's been a pretty eventful morning.
And so here's the thing about that.
Yeah.
Gerundelo's mentioned the fatigue, and they played a lot of games. LA has played a lot of games this year. At some point, though, fatigue is at some point the games are going to rack up for other teams as well.
Yeah. And
LA is going to have to just kind of at least manage some draws out of this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like at least manage the game into, hey, we're fatigued. If we can get something going forward, we can. But we also need to be shored up defensively because and again, like last night, it's a damn near picture perfect counter from the Galaxy. But eventually, you got to find a way to get something out of these.
Yeah.
Because I get that they are fatigued, and I believe it 100%. But they've still got to find something because they're in the good position, which is to be higher up in the table. And if you drop games, it's okay. You're not falling out of the playoff picture. You're falling down the playoff picture, which is better than out of the playoff picture.
Correct.
We're going to use prepositions and emphasize them.
Yes.
But that being said, you have to you don't want to let your cushion get away like Atlanta had started to, and hopefully you hope the Philadelphia game is kind of a push in that direction. We can go over we can kind of get an idea of what Atlanta might look like going forward, because it might be you stick 3 at the back for the time being.
Yeah.
it might be used. Go back to 4 at the back, and you ask Ronald Hernandez to sit deeper. So instead of like a 6 sitting between 2 center backs to make a line of 3, it's your left back sitting a little bit deeper. If you want to keep Caleb Wiley up front, and right now, I think you want to keep Caleb Wiley. Like personally, I want to keep Caleb Wiley up in left wing.
Mm-hmm.
I want him in the attack. He's been damn good at it.
And especially when he gets to point at scoreboards in front of Olivier Mbaizo.
My God, that was amazing. But yes, you want to be on top of all of that. But you might stick, especially when Miles comes back. If Abram can find the form he had a couple years ago, and I thought he was fine the other night. I was happy for him because he was on a game that wasn't a shelling.
Yeah.
But if it's Barata, Abram, and Miles, and you play 3 at the back, and then you play Brooks as a right wing back and Caleb as a left wing back,
maybe
that's what you do. And I'm fine with that, man.
Mm-hmm.
If it shores you up defensively, you trust the guys in attack. You trust having a Yorgos Giacomakis if he's healthy. Tyler Wolf, Macho Chol, those guys to be able to at any given moment find opportunities. So we'll see how it goes. You still have a DP spot. How do you want to spend that? Because it sounds like you're about to. It sounds like you're about to use it for midfield, not the DP spot, but just a spot for midfield.
Right. And so you've got all of that to look at. Tafka and no fewer than 13 midfielders more deserving. Parks, Ledesma, Buck, Luna, Edelman, Sakaris, Vargas, McGlynn, Flock, Perez, Timothy Tillman, Kappas, and Kramashi. So,
genuine question. I'm not trying to troll.
Yeah.
Do we know if Greg made this decision or if?
No, we don't. We don't know.
Okay.
We don't know if BJ made it or.
That's where I was going to ask.
We don't know if Callahan made it or if Greg made it. No, we honestly do not.
Okay.
And
I am perplexed by Ewell as well because I do think there were better options. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
I just don't know who made the call.
Yeah, and I think that's that is one of the questions, hopefully, that we can get an answer to when it comes to this particular roster shift. And so Bart has been less than happy, and I want to get his direct quote from when it went down. Quoting Bart, "We had a chance to improve the team and bring in a dynamic midfielder, and we called in Jackson Ewell." And then you get the facepalm emoji. I've yet to figure out how to do the facepalm emoji and figure out where it is. I don't think I searched deeply enough to find the to find the facepalm emoji. But Jarrett, since we're now here in the beginning of the window, and we were trying to kind of workshop who would be the most active in this window and try and either foolishly try to keep up with the Joneses and try and match Messi and friends, or just try and do their thing.
And a quick aside to Emilio's point about Yorgos not having a break in over a year. This is the thing that I've harped on a lot of times with Scotland and with Celtic in particular. Celtic and Rangers, about when Rangers, after they won the league and they played Champions League, when you win the Scottish League, you're going to play 50, 60 games a year. Those teams play a lot.
Yep.
As much as some of the bigger English clubs that are in a bunch of different competitions, the difference being let me ask you, John, if one of the big six lose in the Community Shield, is it a big deal?
It's catastrophic.
Is it?
It's something that you're supposed to do, especially if you're If you're a Big Six and you lose in that tournament, especially in the early rounds, there's absolute laughter.
But you gotta make concessions. It's something you're not gonna win all three tournaments. You're not gonna win that, the FA Cup, and the league, right?
Don't tell Pep Guardiola that.
Yeah, so that's the expectation for Celtic and Rangers, though. So they're going to go full bore in all their turns. Yeah, so it's not only feasible, it's expected to win all three of those tournaments. So they're going to go full bore. Those teams, the players you get out of Scotland, they're going to have played a lot of minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Callum McGregor's going to die one day from all the minutes he has played.
Yes. So it's that's what you're the expectation, realistic or not, if you're a Big Six, is initially to win as much as humanly possible. But if, much like what we'll see here with Open Cup, if you are making a deep run in CONCACAF Champions League, you could be like LAFC and try and trot out LAFC 2, which, by the way, had a victory wiped off the board for using an ineligible player in MLS Next Pro the other day. But you will see rotated sides. And if a team continues that's a Big Six team, if they continue to work their way through with rotated sides, the eventual loss doesn't hurt, doesn't sit there and hurt as much. But if you are chasing after all three, then the greed of the titles gets into fans' memories and brains. It's like, oh, let's win them all. Let's win them all. And so that's when you're chasing after different kinds of troubles than you would see with Manchester City. But the domestic troubles and things like that, if you're not in European football and you're chasing after those kinds of things, then the expectation is, let's go ahead and get them and rush after it and go for it and all that. But if you are like LAFC and chasing after things hemispherically in addition to, then you can sacrifice Open Cup and folks aren't necessarily going to care about it. And then you'll still beat Monterey Bay and go rounds further than you would have wanted.
I guess my point being, it's nice if Manchester United wins two of those cups, wins like the Community Shield and Gummy Bear Cup, the FA Cup.
Yeah.
It's nice if they do.
Mm-hmm.
In Scotland for Rangers and Celtic, it is expected. You might get scolded if you don't.
Yes.
The expectation goes beyond we would like to we need to. So, I mean, that's just you play a lot of high-intensity games, and a lot of times you're going to be playing like Aberdeen did, but they played Darvel FC.
Yes.
And you're going to play some weird games. But yeah.
Yes, you are, sir.
I see, by the way, that it looks like Andrew Gutman has made it unofficially official.
Okay.
He will be departing. He's done the goodbyes on Instagram with his teammates, going out with friends, doing that. I'm going to miss you guys kind of thing.
I saw one post like that on Instagram yesterday, and let me go back and see if he has done anything on Andrew Gutman 3 on Instagram. Looks like he was away on vacation, and it looks like the boss has good handles with the soccer ball. Let's see. Nothing on his actual feed. Of course, it was also 3 weeks ago. Let's see what's on his Insta stories. 13 hours ago, there was a post. Gonna miss you guys, but no context. So we'll see. And we'll keep an eye on that kind of stuff when it comes to any departures and things like that. I would anticipate, as we've been discussing this morning, that you're going to be looking at some folks who are going to panic and try to chase after things in the window. I think Toronto is probably going to try and figure out some kind of an exit strategy for Bernadeschi and Insigne, considering how motivated they seem to be right now. And there has been, as Tafka had alluded to this morning, there's been some courting from our friends in Saudi Arabia.
I mean, but here's the thing, man. If you're Toronto, how tempted are you just be like, you know what, just hard reset?
Yeah.
Just go pull the power, reset, cycle the power.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that I would.
Don't even flip the switch.
Mm-hmm.
Don't even push the button on the NES. We're talking take the game out of the console, blow in it, but also unplug the cables out the back,
Yeah.
give it a minute, then plug them back in and try again. This
Yeah.
isn't a change games. This is a oh, for God's sake. We have our just come across the wire from Las Vegas Lights. Their fun antic is out today.
Oh, they have a fun antic out today.
Yes. So any of y'all who want to go to Las Vegas, all fans invited on field to participate at halftime on July 8th against Birmingham Legion. They are attempting to set the record for the world's largest water balloon fight.
Oh, no. No. Okay.
How much water in Vegas for a water balloon fight?
No. Not that I'm aware of. Dante Polvares completed his successful battery loan. He's returning to Aberdeen. That has come out in the last 8 minutes.
Lights FC will provide thousands of pre-filled water balloons available for fans entering the field at halftime. The fight will last a minimum of 2 minutes in an attempt to qualify for the potential world record, which was previously set by Lights FC in 2019.
Okay. Oh, so yeah, all right. So I just saw the note that came across 2 minutes ago from Lights. So yes, you beat me to opening the email, sir.
Yeah. It just popped up on my phone. So
yeah. Let's see. They just made it official. All right. So
thank you, Andrew Goodman.
They just made it official. Thank you. Yep. So, thank you, Andrew Gutman. So it is officially.
I couldn't do this a day earlier, so he and I could go sit in a supercell together.
Nope. It is 400,000 in GAM and an international roster slot, which is what we had anticipated that it was going to be. That it was going to be that way. So Andrew Gutman to Colorado. That is official. That is officially official here, brought out by the team. It is 400,000 in GAM, 300,000 in 2023 GAM, 100,000 in 2024 GAM, and a 2023 international roster slot from Colorado in exchange for Andrew Gutman. Atlanta could also acquire up to 150,000 in conditional GAM if Gutman reaches certain performance thresholds during his time with Colorado. The secondary transfer window officially opened today, will remain open until Wednesday, August the 2nd. And so there you go. 300,000 in 2023 GAM, 100,000 in 24 GAM, international roster slot up to 150,000 in conditional GAM in exchange for Andrew Gutman. So it is now officially.
I want to see how it goes for him in Colorado because, Colorado leans, just from 45 minutes last night in person, a lot of getting the ball downfield over the top to Keegan Rosenberry on the right.
Mm-hmm.
Gutman gives him an option on the left now. I want to see how that goes.
Okay.
I want to see how successful that is because if Colorado wants an attacking left fullback, buddy, they got one now.
Yeah.
I know Gutman, Gutman, we talked about this, has regressed defensively this year. He is still a very dangerous attacking fullback or attacking wingback if they want to do that. Now, however they want to set it up, however they do that, I hope he does really well out here. But if you're Atlanta and you stick with three at the back, then you like Caleb in that spot. If you go forward the back, Ron Hernandez gives you more defensive stability, and maybe you drop Caleb back there at times. But I want to see how this shakes out. And Atlanta's window is going to be weird. We already had loose rumors on Taco Almada to Manchester, both
Manchesters.
You want a fun one to watch outside of Atlanta around the league. Watch if somebody is able to go get Pizarro for I don't know, a cup of coffee and a couple deflated balls.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like that's about the price Miami's going to be getting for him. Maybe the price they ask for, just to get him off the books.
Yeah.
I do wonder if Pizarro in another club might be a more stable option. Maybe he has a chance to kind of rebound a bit.
Yeah.
But that'll be a fun one to watch to see if somebody gets him in the similar sense when, Toronto just shipped Pozuelo out.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, bye.
Bruh.
Thanks for having a great time. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah. Does would anyone like Alejandro Pozuelo? James Horncastle reporting AC Milan come back with an improved second offer for Christian Pulisic, total package worth €22 million. Milan have lined up Chukwueze for the same role in an event. The deal can't be struck with Chelsea. That's from our friends at The Athletic. Carlo Ancelotti is going to take over Brazil after his contract runs out at Real Madrid, so that's in 2024. Let's see. Viewing stuff today. Before we go, no, did they announce a makeup date for the finishing up of the abandonment out there?
No, they did not. They just did hey, we're not going to finish this tonight.
Like,
the people were most upset about that they canceled the fireworks. That was the thing people were mad about.
Yeah.
Although you could just stand on the the balconies and look away from the stadium and see tons of fireworks going off in Denver.
Yeah.
So that part was cool. Yeah, Xabi Alonso coming down. Dude, Miami is putting together one of the best teams you've ever seen in FIFA 2010.
Yes, exactly right. So Inter Miami and Messi and friends will be interesting. Luis Enrique was announced this morning as the head coach at PSG, taking over for Christophe Galtier, who finally posted his departure announcement. So Luis Enrique under contract through 2025. Viewing today, season pass, NYCFC in Charlotte at 7:30. This one's at Citi Field. If you want to listen to Will and Jess, go on the Odyssey app and listen to their broadcast. Golazo Network has the Argentine Primera, River Plate and Cologne at 8:30. The Euro under 21 semifinals, Israel, England at noon, Spain, Ukraine at 3. Paramount Plus has a lot of work in the Argentine Primera. 5 matches. Bonfield is on at 4. Rosario Central's on at 5. Racing Club, San Lorenzo at 6:30. River Plate, Cologne at 8:30. And they're also simulcasting the Euro U21s. So there you go. That's your Wednesday viewing for today. Tafka looked like he was pretty close on the valuation on the deal. So we'll see what happens there.
It's good business. You brought a guy in for
is it 25 or 50?
You brought a guy in for not a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
He produced. He's huge last year.
Mm-hmm.
When half the team was a mash unit, and you needed somebody to provide attacking threat.
Yep.
And it was very weird that it was coming from a left back / left center back at times, but you got very Scottish with it.
Yeah.
And he was immensely helpful in those moments, and was involved around the community, did a lot of stuff interacting. I hate to see Andrew leave.
Yeah.
I hope he kills it in Colorado.
Yeah.
But at this point, if this is how you're going to set things up going forward, you have surplus, you clear a spot, you get an international roster spot, and you make money on him long term. And as hopefully, I think he can slot right in and get minutes immediately in Colorado, getting forward and being an attacking fullback. I hope he thrives out here.
Absolutely. I mean, he was with us for Star Stripes and Soccer Cup this past season with. It was Andrew and Amar that were with us this year for that one. Osasuna has also been bumped out of international play for a 10-year-old judgment or a 10-year-old violation of rules in Europe. And really cool piece of Angel Di Maria looks like he might be getting interest from Benfica. And Hannah Dingley has become the first woman to coach a pro men's side in English football. Forest Green Rovers become England's first professional men's football team to be managed by a woman after appointing Hannah Dingley as new caretaker boss. Rovers sacked Big Dunk on Tuesday, later announced the academy head Dingley would take interim charge. Club was relegated from League One last season, so they're in League Two. Doesn't kick off until next month, but Dingley will be in charge for a friendly against a non-league side today. Club chair Dale Vint said Dingley was the natural choice, adding she's done a fantastic job leading the academy well aligned with the values of the club. So Forest Green, you'll remember Forest Green Rovers became the world's first vegan football club in 2015. Numerous green initiatives have been implemented at the home ground. They eventually want to renovate their stadium and have it be all wood. So That's a piece of news out there. So hang on, Ricky. What's your Men in Blazers note? McKinney in talks with Dortmund. Weston McKinney about a potential summer move from Juve, where he joined Gio Reyna. So we'll keep an eye on that. But welcome to the beginning of the secondary transfer window. And we'll keep an eye on it, obviously, with everything that has gone on today. Obviously, the big news here locally with Andrew Gutman. We'll keep an eye on that. Definitely we'll miss Andrew around here for a bunch of different reasons, but you hope he goes to Colorado and just absolutely wrecks it. So, Jarrett, what is the rest of the day for you and the boss and Ivy?
So we are, let's see, we are going to at least one museum. We will come back, catch a nap, and then go to Red Rocks tonight.
Okay. So
assuming the world doesn't end.
I was going to say, who's at Red Rocks tonight?
They're doing a John Williams thing for a bunch of John Williams movie scores. And my daughter loves movie scores, and especially loves the John Williams ones. So we're going to go, we're meeting up with a couple friends who live out here, and we'll go to Red Rocks, which will be a fun experience, and go to some museums, and I won't be going to any more soccer games.
I know, that's the disappointment. Programming stuff, we'll be keep an eye out. The MLS Next Pro Week in Review show, that's going to be out a little later today. We're catching up with some of our friends from the USLW as we're going to preview the Southern Conference. That will be out tomorrow as well, trying to catch up with the 4 teams that are attached there. We're going to catch up with our friends at North Carolina FC and have that as a part of it too. Also, Tennessee SC, they're on the road today on a 6-hour bus ride from basically Nashville to Cary, North Carolina. So we put out the signal flares to try to catch up with everybody trying to chase after the Southern Conference Championship in USLW as well. Tomorrow, Nico Moreno will join us at 10:30, and we'll continue to talk about stuff. It's the official term. So, Jarrett, since you're the furthest away from all of us, send us home.
Much obliged to y'all.
What he said. End of the show. See you in 22 hours. That means we get to do this.